The Minister called the latest and limited evidence that chemical weapons have been used by the Syrian government a war crime. Strong language. But does it signal a shift in the stance of the West and bring closer than ever some form of military intervention in Syria? Well, President Obama has already stated that there is a red line on Syria. David Cameron agrees. But when that red line is crossed, what happens isn't clear. The president said it would take a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilised for that to happen. And tonight the White House said the latest evidence isn't what it termed an airtight case. In any event, the big question remains what they would do if and when that line is crossed. A warning, there are some distressing images in our Washington correspondent Matt Frei's report.
10 years ago, the people in this building went to war with questionable intelligence against the wishes of many allies. Today, over Syria, caution is the guiding principle as President Obama and his advisors ponder one question with very high stakes. Does this disturbing footage amount to the famous red line for US military intervention set by the administration? It apparently shows survivors of a nerve gas attack in Aleppo in northeastern Syria. These are the members of one family, and according to a British newspaper reporter who spoke to them and the doctors, the symptoms are consistent with a chemical attack.
The video showed very clearly some of the symptoms, repetitive twitching of limbs, semi-conscious sort of trance state, dilated pupils, foaming at the mouth and nose. Which again are key symptoms in identifying not only a chemical attack, but for experts, what kind of chemical was used.
In this specific case, sarin nerve gas. To the rebels desperately seeking US military intervention, these pictures are the red line. But do they satisfy the benchmarks established by the president himself last year?
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
A whole bunch isn't exactly a scientific metric. It leaves plenty of wiggle room, and in the absence of more information, all we're left with is a range of responses, depending on your point of view.
The President of the United States said that if the Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons, it would be a game changer, that it would cross a red line. I think it's pretty obvious that red line has been crossed.
It is very disturbing what we're seeing. It is limited evidence, but there is growing evidence that we've seen too of the use of chemical weapons, probably by the regime. It's extremely serious. This is a war crime.
We have to take the evidence that we have and the varying degrees of confidence that we have about the assessment that chemical weapons have been used and build on that.
In other words, the greatest caution comes from the people who matter most, in the White House. Now, if chemical weapons are being used, there's certainly no shortage of them in Syria. President Assad possesses plenty since they're produced in factories across his own country. Most are thought to be made at 4 main production sites, in Homs, Hama, Latakia, and the largest at a facility in Al-Safira. The site has been besieged in recent months from the jihadist group Jabhat al-Nusra, but so far remains in the hands of the regime. Even if Britain and France favour greater intervention, they're unlikely to act without the support of President Obama. And his caution is a response to his predecessor's lack of it, just as W's action over Iraq was a response to his own father's inaction. The opening of the George W. Bush Library yesterday in Texas, a history lesson with consequences for Syria.
Freedom inspired our founders.
And Matt's live in Washington now. Why are they being so unclear?
Well, they're being unclear, Krish, because this president is defined by pragmatism and caution. Remember, he wouldn't have got elected as president of this country if he hadn't opposed the Iraq war, unlike Hillary Clinton, who opposed him in the primaries. Secondly, they don't know if they do something militarily, will it actually have any consequences? How do you bomb a chemical weapons factory? What do you do if the wind suddenly changes direction and heads towards a population center? There are so many reasons for this caution until the case is overwhelming, especially in the eyes of the American public, which is also very cautious. This president won't see this as a game changer. The real question is this, Krish. Is it a red line? But also, how thick can a red line be? If you ask me, as I'm sure you will, I reckon this might change it politically. In other words, more pressure if there are more attacks like this at the United Nations, on the Russians and the Chinese in order to come up with a new resolution. But militarily, I don't think this is a game changer yet.
Thanks, Matt.